I don't know how to ask for help, and that admission alone feels like the most vulnerable and terrifying thing I have ever written, because asking for help has never been something that came naturally to me, has never been something that my family or my circumstances or my life experiences ever taught me how to do, and now I find myself in a position where I need help more than I have ever needed anything in my entire life. But the words get stuck in my throat every time I try to form them, and when I do manage to push them out, people look at me like I am joking, like the very idea of me needing help is so absurd and so incongruent with their image of me that it must be some kind of elaborate prank or sarcastic comment or cry for attention that they don't have to take seriously, and this reaction, this complete dismissal of my genuine need, has made me retreat even further into myself, has made me question whether I am even worthy of help, whether my struggles are real enough to deserve assistance, whether I am just being dramatic or lazy or entitled in ways that I can't see because I am too close to my own situation. I have been watching, from the periphery of various online communities and social platforms, people posting about being allies, about wanting to support others, about having the resources and the willingness to help people who are struggling, and I have allowed myself, in my most desperate and hopeful moments, to believe that maybe there are really generous people out there, people who would help me without strings attached, people who would see my struggle and offer a hand without expecting something in return, people who would understand that I am not trying to take advantage of anyone but simply trying to survive in a world that has become increasingly hostile and unforgiving. But the problem is that I have spent my entire life doing everything on my own, carrying every burden myself, solving every problem in isolation, and this pattern of hyper-independence was not something I chose but something that was forced upon me by my family situation, by a long and painful story that I won't go into fully here but that has left me with deep scars and an almost pathological reluctance to rely on anyone else for anything. I learned from a very young age that I could not count on my family, that their support was conditional and temporary and always came with expectations that I could never quite meet, and so I built my life around the principle of self-sufficiency, of never needing anyone, of being the person who could handle everything on their own, and this strategy worked for a long time, or at least it seemed to work, until it didn't. Until the weight of everything became too much for one person to carry. Until the cumulative effect of years of struggle and stress and burnout finally caught up with me and left me unable to pretend anymore that I could do it all alone. I am trying to ask for help now. I am trying to break through the walls I have built around myself and reach out to others in ways that I have never allowed myself to do before, but I just don't know what to say. I don't have the language for this. I don't have the script or the template or the model for how a person who has always been the helper, the giver, the one who solves problems for other people, suddenly becomes the one who needs help and has to ask for it. I have asked people how to ask, I have reached out to friends and acquaintances and even strangers in various online spaces, hoping that someone could give me a formula or a framework or even just a few words that I could use to communicate what I need, but the advice I keep getting is that I should just ask the people around me, that I should reach out to my existing support network, that I should be honest and direct and let the people who care about me know that I'm struggling, and this advice, while well-intentioned, is completely useless to me because the people around me, the people I have surrounded myself with over the years, only liked me because I was useful to them, because I provided something they needed, because I was always the one who could solve their problems and listen to their struggles and offer emotional support and practical assistance without ever asking for anything in return, and now that I am no longer useful, now that I am the one who needs help, instead of the one providing it, they have disappeared, they have lost interest. They have made it clear that our relationships were transactional all along and that my value to them was entirely dependent on what I could give them. This realization has been devastating, absolutely crushing, because it means that the friendships I thought were genuine, the connections I thought were meaningful, the support system I thought I had built over years of effort and investment, were never really there at all, were always contingent on my ability to give and give and give without ever taking, and now that I need to take, now that I am empty and depleted and have nothing left to offer, I find myself completely alone, surrounded by people who don't actually care about me but only about what I can do for them. I feel stuck, trapped in a situation where I need help desperately but have no one to turn to, where I am expected to ask for help but have no one who is actually willing to provide it, where I am told that I need to be vulnerable and open but have learned through bitter experience that vulnerability only leads to rejection and disappointment and further isolation. People used to offer me money when I was working, when I was in a position of relative stability and had something to offer in return, but I always saw strings from my past. I always recognized the patterns of conditional generosity that I had experienced so many times before, the way that help always comes with expectations, the way that people who give often want something back, the way that accepting help can leave you indebted in ways that are difficult to quantify but impossible to escape. I learned early on that gifts from my family were never really gifts, that they were investments or loans or leverage, that they came with obligations and expectations and unspoken rules that I would be held to later, and this experience has made me deeply suspicious of generosity, has made me question every offer of help, has made me wonder what the catch is, what they want from me, what I will owe them in the future. Whenever I post about my situation, whenever I try to reach out and ask for help in the only ways I know how, people comment on the way I speak. They say that I am too blunt, too direct, too aggressive, too demanding, and I am left confused and frustrated because I am genuinely trying to be kind. I am trying to communicate clearly and honestly. I am trying to strip away all the pretense and the games and the indirect hints that seem to be required in social interactions, and this directness, which I see as a virtue and a sign of respect for the people I am communicating with, is apparently off-putting to others. apparently makes me seem entitled or ungrateful or difficult. I am blunt and direct, yes, I will admit that, but I am also kind, I am also grateful, I am also trying my absolute best to navigate a world that seems to operate on rules I don't understand, on social cues I can't read, on expectations I can't meet, and the constant feedback that I'm doing it wrong, that I'm saying the wrong things, that I'm approaching this whole situation in the wrong way, has made me feel like I'm failing at being human, like there is some fundamental thing about social interaction that everyone else understands and I don't, and that this failure is the reason I am alone, the reason no one is helping me, the reason I can't seem to find the support that I so desperately need. But I keep trying, I keep reaching out, I keep putting myself out there despite the rejection and the dismissal and the constant criticism of my tone and my approach, because what other choice do I have? Because the alternative is to give up completely, to accept that I will never get help, that I will always be alone, that I have to figure out how to survive this situation entirely on my own even though I am already at the breaking point and have been for months, even though I can feel myself slipping further and further into a state of exhaustion and despair that I am not sure I can come back from. The fear that holds me back, the fear that makes my hands shake and my stomach turn every time I try to formulate a request for help, is the fear of being seen as a burden, of being rejected, of being told that my problems are not important enough, that I don't deserve help, that I should be able to handle this on my own like I have handled everything else in my life, and this fear is not irrational, it is based on years of evidence, on the countless times I have been dismissed or ignored or made to feel like my struggles were insignificant, on the messages I have internalized from my family and my society and my culture that say that people who need help are weak, that asking for help is shameful, that true independence means never needing anyone or anything. I have tried to be the person who doesn't need anyone. I have worked so hard to be that person. I have pushed through exhaustion and illness and emotional devastation with a smile on my face and a cheerful I'm fine on my lips, and I have managed to convince everyone around me that I don't need help, that I have everything under control, that I'm the strong one who can handle anything, and now that I am finally admitting that I can't handle it, that I am not fine, that I need help more than I have ever needed anything, no one believes me, no one takes me seriously. No one understands that this is not a joke or an exaggeration or a temporary setback but a genuine crisis that I am not sure I can survive without outside intervention. I look at the people who seem to be able to ask for help easily, who have supportive families and friends and communities that rally around them when they are struggling, who have never had to learn the hard way that asking for help can be dangerous, that vulnerability can be weaponized, that the people you trust the most are often the ones who will hurt you the deepest. And I feel a kind of grief for the person I could have been if I had grown up in a different environment, if I had been taught that asking for help was a strength rather than a weakness, if I had been surrounded by people who could be counted on to show up when things got hard. I am trying to overcome that fear now. I am trying to reach out anyway despite every instinct screaming at me to retreat, to protect myself, to maintain my walls and my defenses and my carefully constructed independence, and the fact that I am even trying, the fact that I am writing these words and putting them out into the world despite the terror I feel, is a victory in itself, is a sign that I am making progress even if it doesn't feel like it, even if I still don't know what to say or how to say it or who to say it to. I think the reason I have struggled so much with asking for help is that I don't know what I'm supposed to sound like, I don't know what tone to use or what words to choose or how to present myself in a way that makes people want to help me rather than dismiss me or judge me or mock me for my inability to handle my own problems. I have tried the direct approach, where I just state my situation and my needs clearly and honestly, but this has often resulted in people telling me I am being too aggressive or demanding, that I come across as entitled, that I need to be more humble or more grateful or more aware of how my words are perceived. I have tried the softer approach, where I downplay my struggles and make it clear that I don't expect anything and would be grateful for any help, no matter how small, but this has often resulted in people telling me I'm being too vague, that they don't know what I actually need, that I need to be more specific and direct about what would help me. I have tried to follow the examples I see from other people who seem to be able to ask for help and receive it, but their situations are always different, their support systems are always more intact, their families and friends are always more responsive, and I end up feeling like an imposter, like I'm trying to copy a script that was written for someone else's life and has no relevance to mine. I have been told that I need to be more vulnerable, that I need to show people the real me, the struggling me, the me that is hurting and scared and overwhelmed. But when I do that, when I let that show, people pull away, they don't know what to do with it, they don't want to be around someone who is so obviously in pain, and so I am left with the impossible choice between pretending to be fine and being alone, or being honest about my struggles and being even more alone. The way I speak, the bluntness and directness that people have commented on, is not something I chose but something I developed as a survival mechanism, a way of cutting through the noise and the games and the manipulation that characterized so much of my early life, a way of saying exactly what I mean and meaning exactly what I say so that there can be no confusion, no interpretation, no later claims that I was being indirect or unclear or disingenuous, and the fact that this survival mechanism has become a barrier to receiving help, the fact that the very thing I developed to protect myself is now making it harder for me to connect with people and get the support I need, is a cruel irony that I have been grappling with for months, trying to figure out how to be both clear and approachable, honest and gentle, direct and warm, without losing the essential part of myself that values transparency and authenticity over performance and pretense. I have been thinking a lot about the concept of deserving, about whether I deserve help, about what makes a person worthy of assistance, and I have realized that part of my difficulty in asking is that I don't feel like I deserve anything, that I have internalized so many messages about my inadequacy and my unworthiness that I genuinely believe I don't have the right to ask for help, that my struggles are not important enough, that there are so many people out there who are suffering more than I am, that I should be grateful for what I have and stop complaining, and this belief, this deeply embedded conviction that my needs are not valid or legitimate, is something I am trying to overcome, trying to see through, trying to challenge with every rational argument I can muster. The truth is that everyone deserves help, that everyone struggles sometimes, that no one is meant to carry everything alone, but knowing this in theory and believing it in practice are two very different things, and the gap between them is where I am stuck, where I have been stuck for years, where I am trying desperately to find a way through. I have seen other people receive help, people who seem to have done nothing to deserve it, people who are not more deserving than me but who are simply better at asking, who have more supportive networks, who exist in circumstances that make it easier for others to respond with compassion rather than judgment, and I feel a mix of envy and confusion, a sense that there is some secret that everyone else knows and I don't, some way of existing in the world that makes it possible to receive help, without feeling like a burden, without having to justify your existence and your needs and your worth every single time you ask for anything. I want to learn that secret, I want to understand what I'm doing wrong and how to fix it, but the advice I get is always so general, so vague, so clearly coming from people who have never had to learn the hard way that asking for help can be dangerous, that vulnerability can be exploited, that the people you trust can turn on you when you need them the most. The fear of being seen as a joke, of having my genuine pain and struggle dismissed as an attempt at humor or attention-seeking, is one of the most debilitating aspects of this entire experience, because it means that even when I manage to push through all my other fears and actually ask for help, I am met with disbelief, with laughter, with the assumption that I must be joking because the idea of me needing help is just too absurd to take seriously. I can't count the number of times I have mustered every ounce of courage I possess to reach out to someone, to be honest about my situation, to say the words I need help, only to be met with a laugh and a comment about how I must be kidding, how I always seem so put together, how I am the last person they would expect to need anything, and these reactions, these dismissals of my pain as something that cannot possibly be real, have chipped away at my sense of self-worth and my belief that anyone will ever take me seriously, will ever see beyond the facade I have built, will ever understand that the strong, capable, independent person they think they know is a construction, a survival mechanism, a mask that I have worn for so long that I sometimes forget it's not actually my face. I am trying to be honest, I am trying to be direct, I am trying to communicate my needs in a way that is clear and unambiguous, and yet somehow I keep getting the same response, the same dismissal, the same assumption that I must be joking because the reality of my situation is too uncomfortable, too inconvenient, too much of an imposition on the people I am reaching out to. It makes me want to give up, to retreat back into my independence and my self-sufficiency and my isolation, to accept that I will never be able to get help, that I will always have to do everything alone, that the vulnerability and openness that everyone tells me I need to cultivate will never be safe for me because the world has shown me time and time again that my vulnerability will be met with rejection rather than compassion. But I am still here, still trying, still reaching out despite all the rejection and dismissal and criticism, because there is a part of me, a stubborn and hopeful part that I can't seem to kill despite years of evidence that it is naive and unrealistic, that believes there are good people out there, people who will help without strings attached, people who will see my struggle and my effort and my genuine need and respond with generosity rather than judgment. I believe this even when I have no evidence for it, even when my experiences have taught me the opposite, even when every attempt I make to connect with others ends in failure and disappointment, because the alternative is too dark to contemplate, because giving up on the possibility of help means giving up on myself, means accepting that my situation is hopeless and that I will never find a way out of this, means surrendering to the despair and exhaustion and isolation that have been threatening to swallow me whole for months. I am fighting against that despair. I am fighting for my life in a very real and literal way, and the fight is exhausting. It is draining every ounce of energy and hope and determination I have, but I refuse to stop fighting. I refuse to give up. I refuse to accept that the world is as cruel and indifferent as my experiences have made it seem. I keep reaching out, keep trying to articulate what I need, keep attempting to find the right words, the right tone, the right approach that will finally be met with the response I am hoping for, and I am writing this now because I need someone to see me, to hear me, to understand that I am not joking and I am not exaggerating and I am not trying to take advantage of anyone. That I am a human being in genuine crisis who needs help and is trying desperately to ask for it in the only ways I know how. I am blunt and direct and I will always be blunt and direct because that is who I am and I can't be someone else, but I am also kind, I am also grateful, I am also trying my absolute best to navigate a situation that I was never prepared for and never expected to be in, and if my directness or my tone or my approach has put people off, I am sorry, I am genuinely sorry, but I don't know how to be different. I don't know how to be the person who can ask for help in a way that doesn't alienate others. I only know how to be me, and me right now is scared and exhausted and desperate and still, somehow, still, hoping that someone out there will understand, will see past the facade and the defenses and the awkward directness and recognize that there is a real person here who needs help, who is worthy of help, who will be so incredibly grateful for any help that comes their way. I don't know what to say, I have never known what to say, but I am saying this, these words that are clumsy and imperfect and probably too blunt and direct, because saying something is better than saying nothing, because silence has never helped me or anyone else, because the only way to find help is to ask for it, even when asking feels impossible, even when the fear of rejection is overwhelming, even when every previous attempt has ended in failure. This is my attempt, this is my reaching out, this is my hope that someone will hear me and believe me and help me, and if nothing else, I can say that I tried, that I was brave enough to ask, that I overcame the fear and the shame and the conditioning that told me I shouldn't need anyone, that I should be able to handle this alone, that asking for help makes me weak and undeserving. I am not weak, I am not undeserving, I am a person who has been carrying an impossible weight for too long, and I am finally, asking for someone to help me carry it, and if that makes me vulnerable, if that makes me open to rejection and judgment and dismissal, I will risk it, because the alternative is to keep carrying everything alone, and I just can't do that anymore, I absolutely cannot do that anymore, and so I am asking, and I hope with everything I have, that someone, somewhere, will answer.